I am Jessica Parker, 32 years old, and I built my luxury hotel empire from nothing but determination and sleepless nights. My family never believed in me, especially my mother and sister Amanda, who always made me feel small and insignificant. When my dad turned 60, they planned his celebration at my flagship hotel, completely unaware that I owned it. As I approached the entrance that evening wearing my simple black dress, I could see their disapproving glances. They had no idea that the staff would soon greet me as their boss. If you are enjoying this story, please let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about family blindness that costs dearly. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Portland, our family looked normal from the outside. We had a decent house, 2 cars, and took modest vacations once a year. But inside those walls, the dynamics were anything but balanced. My father, Richard Parker, worked as an accountant at a local firm. He was kind, gentle, and supportive in his quiet way, but he rarely stood up to my mother when it came to family conflicts. My mother, Eleanor, ran our household with military precision and a clear hierarchy of importance. At the top was my older sister, Amanda, 5 years my senior, beautiful and confident from birth. Amanda was the golden child who could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. Below her was my father, whose primary value seemed to be his steady paycheck. And at the bottom rung was me, the dreamer, who never quite measured up. "Jessica, please be realistic about your capabilities," my mother would say, whenever I expressed any ambition. "Not everyone can be exceptional like your sister." The pattern was established early. When Amanda needed dance lessons, my mother found the money immediately. When I wanted to join the school business club, I was told we couldn't afford the modest fees. Amanda got a car for her 16th birthday. I got a bus pass for mine. "We invested in Amanda because she showed promise," my mother explained when I questioned the disparity. "You need to understand financial priorities." Family finances were my mother's domain, and she wielded that power like a weapon. Every purchase was scrutinized, every desire measured against whether it was worth it. Somehow, my needs rarely made the cut. I still remember my high school graduation. Amanda flew home from her expensive private college, and my parents threw her a surprise welcome home party that overshadowed my achievement completely. "Your sister is home for your graduation, Jessica. Be grateful for that," instead of acting entitled to attention, my mother scolded when I expressed disappointment. That summer, I worked at a small local hotel as a housekeeper. The manager noticed my interest in how everything operated and sometimes let me observe the front desk procedures. I came home excited about the hotel industry. "Hotels really, Jessica," Amanda laughed over dinner. "You are going to clean toilets for a living." "She means well," my father said later that night, finding me on the back porch. "Your mother and sister just worry about your future." "They worry I might succeed at something they did not choose," I replied. My father squeezed my shoulder. "I believe you will find your way. You have always been resourceful." It was not exactly standing up for me, but it was something. Those small moments with my father were the only times I felt someone in my family saw me. When college discussions began, Amanda had attended an expensive private university with our parents covering most costs. For me, the conversation was different. "Community college is more suitable for your academic record," my mother declared, though my grades were actually better than Amanda's had been. "Besides, we spent most of our education fund on your sister." I applied for scholarships without telling them, and received a partial one to a state university with a good hospitality program. When the acceptance letter came, my mother was quick to point out what it did not cover. "You will need loans, Jessica. Are you sure you want to start adult life in debt for a degree in hotel management of all things?" My father slipped me $500 when I left for college. "I wish it could be more," he whispered. "I am proud of you for making your own way." At 18, I moved into a tiny apartment near campus with 2 roommates and took a front desk job at a budget hotel chain. The pay was minimal, but the experience was valuable, and my manager allowed flexible hours around my classes. Those early years were a constant struggle. I ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, bought textbooks used, and never went out with friends. Every penny went to tuition or rent. I called home rarely, usually just to speak with my father. Those conversations were always rushed, with my mother inevitably taking the phone to remind me that my financial struggles were due to my poor choices. Amanda is already being considered for a promotion at her marketing firm, she would say. She has her own apartment in the city, no roommates, no student loans. What my mother never mentioned was that Amanda's apartment was subsidized by them, or that my parents had connections that helped her get that marketing job. Meanwhile, I was working 60 hours a week between classes and the hotel, learning the business from the ground up. "You could always come home if this gets too difficult," my mother suggested during one call, her tone making it clear that returning would mean admitting failure. I never considered it, not even during the worst times when I had to choose between buying food or paying the electric bill. Something inside me knew that if I returned home, I would never escape again. My career trajectory changed dramatically during my junior year of college. Margaret Wilson, the owner of the boutique hotel where I had been promoted to assistant front desk manager, took an interest in my dedication to learning every aspect of the business. "You remind me of myself 30 years ago," Margaret told me one evening, as we reviewed the monthly occupancy reports. "Hungry to learn, not afraid of hard work." Under her mentorship, I began to understand the hotel business beyond the operational details. Margaret taught me about property investment, brand development, and the psychology of luxury hospitality. She allowed me to shadow her in owner meetings and introduced me to her industry contacts. "The hotel business is about creating experiences people remember," Margaret would say. "Anyone can provide a clean room and decent service. The magic is in making guests feel special in ways they did not even know they wanted." By graduation, I had been promoted to front desk manager, a position that typically required years more experience. With Margaret's encouragement, I enrolled in night classes for a business degree while working full-time. Those years were exhausting but exhilarating. I worked double shifts whenever possible, volunteered for holiday coverage, and studied until 2 in the morning most nights. My small apartment remained sparse, every extra dollar going into a savings account that grew painfully slowly. My family remained unimpressed. During the rare holidays I could visit home, my mother would introduce me to their friends as Jessica, who works at a hotel, her tone making it sound like I was still cleaning rooms rather than managing a department. "When are you going to get a real career?" Amanda asked during one Thanksgiving dinner. She had just been promoted again at her marketing firm and had brought her new boyfriend, a financial analyst from a wealthy family. "Hotel management is a real career," I responded, keeping my voice even. "Of course it is, dear," my mother interjected. "We just want you to aim higher. Perhaps Amanda could help you get an interview at her company." My father, as usual, said little during these exchanges, though he would later ask genuine questions about my work when we had a moment alone. Everything changed when Margaret decided to retire. She called me into her office one afternoon, 5 years after I had started as a housekeeper. "I am selling the hotel," she announced. "The potential buyers plan to convert it into another generic chain location. Everything special about this place will be lost." My heart sank. I loved our little boutique hotel with its unique character and loyal clientele. "Unless Margaret continued studying me carefully, you would be interested in taking over." I laughed, thinking she was joking. "Margaret, I can barely afford my rent." "I have watched you for 5 years, Jessica. You understand this business in ways that cannot be taught. I am willing to owner finance a significant portion and help you secure loans for the rest." It was terrifying. The numbers she laid out would put me in debt for decades. If the business failed, I would lose everything. But looking around at the hotel that had become my home more than my family house had ever been, I knew I had to try. 3 months later, at 27 years old, I became the owner of the Parker Boutique Hotel, renamed for a fresh start. I moved into a small room on the property to save money and worked 18-hour days to ensure its success. The first year was the hardest of my life. I took no salary, sleeping on a cot in my office some nights to save commuting time. Every decision felt momentous, every unexpected expense a potential disaster. But slowly things improved. Our occupancy rates climbed as our reputation for personalized service spread. I implemented innovative ideas that larger chains were too rigid to try. We became known for anticipating guest needs in almost magical ways, creating loyal customers who returned regularly and sent friends. By year 3, the hotel was profitable enough that I could finally pay myself a modest salary and move into a small apartment nearby. That same year, an opportunity arose to purchase a struggling historic property in downtown Portland at a surprisingly low price. With Margaret's guidance, I secured investors who believed in my vision and took the leap. The renovation nearly broke me both financially and emotionally, but when the Parker Grand opened to rave reviews, everything changed. Suddenly, investors were approaching me. My unique approach to hospitality had created a niche in the luxury market that larger chains could not replicate. Within the next 2 years, I acquired 3 more properties, each becoming more successful than the last. Through it all, I kept my success private from my family. At first, it was simply because I was too busy and stressed to deal with their potential criticism. Later, as success came, I realized I wanted genuine relationships, not connections based on my new financial status. During family gatherings, which I attended less frequently as my business grew, I remained vague about my career. I let them believe I had been promoted to hotel manager, a solid but unimpressive position in their eyes. I always met them at their homes or restaurants of their choosing, never inviting them to see my properties. Still, at that little hotel, my mother would ask, "At least it is steady work." "The hospitality industry has such a low ceiling," Amanda commented during one Christmas dinner. "Have you considered getting an MBA to transition to something with more potential?" I just smiled. I am happy where I am. My newest acquisition, the Parker Royal, was my crowning achievement. A landmark historic building in downtown Portland, transformed into the most exclusive luxury hotel in the Pacific Northwest. With 100 rooms starting at $800 per night, a 3-star restaurant and a rooftop bar with panoramic city views, it had become the destination for celebrities and business elite visiting Portland. Ironically, it was this hotel, the one my family had no idea I owned, that my sister chose for our father's 60th birthday celebration. The call from Amanda came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing architectural plans for my newest property renovation. "Jessica, it is Amanda," my sister announced, unnecessarily, her voice carrying that familiar, superior tone. "We are planning something special for Dad's 60th birthday next month." "That sounds nice," I replied, signaling to my assistant that I needed a moment. "What are you thinking?" "Mother and I have decided to host a dinner at this amazing new luxury hotel downtown, the Parker Royal. Have you heard of it?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "I have heard of it," I managed to say, fighting to keep my voice neutral. "Of course it is quite exclusive," Amanda continued. "Mother pulled some strings through her country club connections to get a reservation in the private dining room. 40 guests, very elegant." I swiveled in my chair, looking out the window of my office at the very hotel she was describing. From my top-floor office, I could see the rooftop bar where celebrities frequently enjoyed private parties. "That sounds wonderful," I said. "Dad will love it." There was a pause before Amanda continued, her voice dropping to what she probably thought was a compassionate tone. "The thing is, Jessica, this venue is quite expensive. The minimum for the private dining room is $10,000. "I see," I replied, knowing exactly what was coming next. "Mother and I will cover most of it, of course. But we thought you might want to contribute something, perhaps the cake, or maybe the wine for your table." I could have ended the charade right then. I could have told her that I did not need to contribute because I owned the entire building, but something held me back. Perhaps it was years of conditioning to their perception of me, or perhaps it was the sudden realization that this might be the perfect opportunity to finally reveal the truth. "Actually, Amanda, money is a bit tight right now," I said, falling into my familiar role. "I am not sure how much I can contribute." There was a sigh on the other end of the line. "Hold on, Mother wants to speak with you." My mother's voice came through, crisp and authoritative. "Jessica, this is a milestone birthday for your father. Everyone is contributing what they can." "I understand that, Mom, but..." "Jessica, if you cannot contribute financially, perhaps it would be better if you joined us just for dessert. The dinner portion is quite expensive per person." I closed my eyes, feeling that familiar sting that had followed me throughout childhood. Even now, as a successful business owner, the casual dismissal still had the power to hurt. Maybe that would be best, I agreed softly. I will come for dessert and the cake. Wonderful, my mother replied, clearly satisfied with this solution. Be there at 8:30. Dress appropriately, please. This is a very elegant establishment. After ending the call, I sat silently in my office, emotions swirling. For years, I had maintained the fiction of my modest career, partly out of a desire to prove myself on my own terms, and partly from a lingering fear of their judgment. But now the perfect opportunity to reveal everything had landed in my lap. Over the next few weeks, I personally oversaw every detail of the birthday celebration, while maintaining the pretense with my family that I would only attend briefly at the end. I worked with the executive chef to design a custom menu featuring all of my father's favorite foods. I selected vintage wines from the cellar that complemented each course perfectly. I arranged for subtle decorations that would maintain the elegant atmosphere while celebrating my father. The private dining room was transformed with soft lighting and tasteful arrangements of my father's favorite blue hydrangeas. The table was set with our finest china and crystal with personalized menus at each place setting. At my instruction, the staff prepared a special slideshow of family photos to be displayed during dessert, focusing heavily on images of my father with me, subtle reminders of our connection that my mother had often tried to minimize. Miss Parker, we have confirmed all 40 guests. My event coordinator Rachel reported 3 days before the event. The kitchen has ordered all specialty ingredients, and the pastry chef has finalized the design for the birthday cake. Thank you, Rachel, I replied. And the staff has been briefed on the special circumstances. She nodded. Only key personnel know about your relationship to the guests of honor. Everyone else has been told simply that this is a VIP event requiring exceptional service. I had decided to reveal my ownership strategically, not in a grand announcement that might embarrass my father, but in a way that would gradually become clear throughout the evening. The night before the event, I stood alone in the empty dining room, imagining how the scene would unfold. Would my mother be proud when she discovered my success, or would she find ways to diminish it? Would Amanda be happy for me or resentful? And most importantly, would my father finally see that his quiet encouragement had helped me achieve my dreams? I chose my outfit carefully for the evening, selecting a simple but elegantly tailored black dress that whispered money rather than shouted it. My jewelry was minimal, just diamond studs, and a delicate watch that had been my first significant purchase when the Parker Grand became profitable. My appearance would be understated but unmistakably refined, reflecting my business philosophy that true luxury never needs to announce itself loudly. As I laid out my clothes, a mix of anxiety and anticipation kept me awake far into the night. Tomorrow would change everything about my family relationships for better or worse. There would be no going back to the comfortable fiction I had maintained for years. It was time for them to see me as I truly was, not as they had always assumed me to be. The evening of my father's birthday arrived with perfect early autumn weather. I spent the morning in meetings trying to focus on business while my mind repeatedly drifted to the evening ahead. At 4 o'clock, I left my office to go home and prepare, instructing the hotel staff to call me if any issues arose with the birthday arrangements. Everything is proceeding perfectly, Miss Parker, my manager assured me. The cake was delivered an hour ago, and the chef just confirmed all special menu items are prepared. Security has been briefed on the arrival protocol for your family. At 7:15, I parked a block away from the hotel and walked slowly toward the entrance, timing my arrival to coincide with my family. The Parker Royal stood majestically against the darkening sky, its historic facade illuminated by subtle lighting that highlighted the ornate architectural details. Through the large windows, I could see the warm glow of the lobby chandeliers and the movement of staff preparing for the evening service. I smoothed my dress and took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had earned this moment through years of sacrifice and hard work. Whatever happened next, I would face it with the same determination that had built my business. From my position across the street, I watched as a sleek black SUV pulled up to the entrance. The valet rushed forward to open the door, and my sister Amanda emerged first, her blonde hair styled in an elaborate updo that complemented her designer red dress. My mother followed, elegant in navy blue with a pearl necklace I recognized from special family occasions. My father was last looking distinguished in a tailored suit that was likely new for the occasion. I waited until they had entered the lobby before crossing the street and approaching the entrance. Through the glass doors, I could see them being greeted by the hostess, my mother, already gesturing authoritatively as she typically did when establishing her importance at any venue. Taking another steadying breath, I pushed through the doors and entered the lobby of my own hotel, as if I were merely another guest. Amanda spotted me first, her eyes narrowing as she took in my appearance. I had deliberately dressed well, but not ostentatiously, knowing they would expect me to either look shabby or to have obviously overextended myself financially to attend. "Jessica," she called, her voice carrying across the marble lobby, "we were not expecting you until dessert." I smiled and walked toward them. I thought I would come for the full celebration after all. "Happy birthday, Dad." I reached up to hug my father, who squeezed me warmly. "Thank you, sweetheart. I am so glad you could make it for dinner too," he said, genuine pleasure in his eyes. My mother's expression tightened. "Jessica, we have already given the final count to the restaurant. Adding another person to the party at this point would be inconsiderate. Not to mention expensive," Amanda added with a small laugh. "This place charges $200 per person for the tasting menu, not including wine pairings." I kept my expression neutral. "I am sure they can accommodate one more." Amanda stepped slightly in front of me, creating a physical barrier between me and the hostess desk. "Jessica, be reasonable. Everyone has already contributed to this event. You cannot just show up and expect to be included without paying your share." Several guests in the lobby turned at the rising tone of her voice, and I felt a flush of embarrassment, not for myself but for my sister's behavior in my establishment. My mother moved closer, lowering her voice to a whisper that was somehow more cutting than a shout. "Jessica, please do not embarrass the family. This is not the place for a scene. Perhaps you could wait in the bar until dessert as we originally discussed." I noticed other guests watching the interaction with uncomfortable expressions. Among them were several regular clients who might recognize me at any moment. The situation was rapidly becoming exactly the type of scene my mother claimed to want to avoid. "I think I have every right to celebrate Dad's birthday," I said quietly but firmly. Amanda laughed, the sound brittle and loud in the elegant space. Rights. Do not pay the bill, Jessica. This venue is clearly out of your budget. I mean, look around." She gestured broadly at the crystal chandeliers and marble columns. "You can barely afford your apartment. What makes you think you belong in a place like this?" The words stung despite my success, echoing years of similar dismissals. For a moment I considered walking away, reverting to the role they had always cast me in, rather than causing a disruption on my father's birthday. Just then, Michael, my head of security, approached our group. He had been watching the situation develop from his discreet position near the elevators. Tall and imposing in his perfectly tailored suit, he moved with the confident grace of someone completely at home in the luxury environment. "Is everything all right here?" he asked, his eyes meeting mine with a question in them. We had not specifically discussed how to handle this moment, and I could see him waiting for my cue. My mother immediately switched to her charming public persona. "Everything is fine, thank you. Just a small family discussion." Michael did not respond to her, keeping his attention focused on me. "Miss Parker, is there a problem we can assist with?" The use of my name sent a visible shock through my mother and sister. My father's expression shifted from confusion to dawning realization. Before I could respond, Thomas Wright, the general manager I had personally hired from a renowned hotel in New York, rushed across the lobby toward our group. "Miss Parker, I did not realize you would be joining us in the lobby tonight," he said, his respectful tone unmistakable. "Is everything prepared to your standards for your father's birthday celebration?" The silence that followed was absolute. My mother's mouth actually fell open, while Amanda seemed frozen in place, her hand still gripping her designer clutch so tightly her knuckles had whitened. "Jessica," my father finally asked, his voice filled with confusion and something else. Pride, perhaps. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "Yes, the hotel belongs to me. I own the Parker Royal, along with 6 other properties in our hotel group." "That is impossible," my mother stated flatly, though uncertainty had crept into her voice. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation somewhere more private. I suggested, aware that we had become the center of attention in the lobby. Thomas, is the Wellington room available? Of course, Miss Parker. Right away. He gestured toward the executive elevator reserved for VIP guests and management. As we walked across the lobby, I could feel my family struggling to process this revelation. My father kept glancing around at the hotel with new eyes. My mother maintained a rigid posture, her social mask firmly in place now that we were in public. Amanda lagged slightly behind, her earlier confidence visibly shaken. The Wellington room was my private meeting space, decorated with photos of all my properties and the awards my hotels had won over the years. As we entered, my family fell silent, taking in the wall of accolades and the sweeping view of the city from the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You actually own this place?" Amanda finally asked, her voice small. "I do," I confirmed. "Along with the Parker Grand downtown, the Parker Retreat on the coast, and 4 others. We are opening our 8th property next spring." My father moved slowly around the room, examining the framed photos and awards with wonder. He stopped at a magazine cover featuring me as one of the top 30 under 30 in the hospitality industry. "All this time," he said quietly, "why did you never tell us?" It was the question I had been asking myself for years. As my family stood in stunned silence, taking in the evidence of my success displayed throughout the Wellington room, I found myself at a loss for words. How could I explain years of deliberate secrecy without sounding petty or vindictive? My mother recovered first, her social training kicking in, as she composed her features into a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Well, this is certainly a surprise. You should have told us, Jessica. We are your family after all." "Yes, why keep all this a secret?" Amanda added, moving to examine a framed photograph of me cutting the ribbon at the Parker Grand opening. "Unless you were planning some dramatic reveal all along." The accusation stung, suggesting that my privacy had been nothing but a calculated move for maximum impact rather than self-preservation. "It was not like that," I said quietly. "At first, I was just focused on survival. The early years were incredibly difficult, and I did not want to discuss my struggles or have them dismissed." My father turned from the wall of accolades. "And later, when you were clearly succeeding," I met his eyes, seeing genuine hurt there. "Later, it just became a habit, I suppose. And maybe I wanted to be valued for myself, not for what I had accomplished or acquired." My mother made a dismissive sound. "That is rather dramatic, Jessica. We have always valued you." "Have you?" The question escaped before I could temper it. Years of accumulated hurt rose to the surface despite my best intentions to remain composed. Before she could respond, Thomas knocked and entered with a bottle of champagne and glasses. "Miss Parker, the guests are beginning to arrive in the private dining room. Should we start seating them, or would you prefer to delay slightly?" "Thank you, Thomas. Please begin seating everyone. We will join shortly." I turned back to my family as he left. "We should continue this later. Tonight is about celebrating Dad." "Yes, of course," my mother agreed quickly, seemingly relieved at the chance to postpone the conversation. She straightened her pearl necklace and smoothed her already perfect hair. "Richard, we should greet our guests." My father hesitated, looking between my mother and me. "I would like a moment with Jessica first, if you two would go ahead." Something in his tone made both my mother and sister comply without argument, though Amanda cast a last curious glance around the room before following my mother out the door. When we were alone, my father simply opened his arms. I stepped into his embrace, feeling the same security those rare hugs had provided throughout my childhood. "I am so proud of you," he whispered, "so incredibly proud." The simple words broke something inside me, and I felt tears threatening. I had told myself that I did not need their approval or validation, that I had built my success on my own terms. But hearing my father's pride meant more than I had allowed myself to admit. "I wish I had known," he continued, releasing me to look into my eyes. "All these years your mother and sister have been—" "I know," I interrupted gently. "It is okay. You supported me in your way." He shook his head. "Not enough. I should have stood up for you more. I let your mother dictate everything, including how we treated you girls differently. I convinced myself it was easier to keep the peace. Dad, tonight is your birthday. We do not need to do this now." He squared his shoulders. Yes, we do, because I am not going back into that dining room until some things are clear. I am tremendously proud of what you have accomplished, and I will not let anyone diminish it, not even your mother. His newfound determination surprised and moved me. Perhaps revelations were happening on both sides tonight. We made our way to the private dining room where 40 guests were being seated. The space looked even more beautiful than I had imagined, with soft lighting, highlighting the floral arrangements, and crystal glittering on the immaculately set tables. As we entered, heads turned. My mother and sister had already taken their seats at the main table, and I could see my mother's eyes widen with alarm as she noted my father's protective hand on my back and the resolved expression on his face. Throughout the evening, I watched my family navigate this new reality with varying degrees of success. My father beamed with genuine pride each time a staff member addressed me with deference or a guest commented on the exceptional quality of the hotel. He introduced me to his friends and colleagues with newfound enthusiasm, emphasizing my accomplishments in a way he never had before. My mother oscillated between looking uncomfortable and attempting to take partial credit for my success. Jessica always had an eye for detail, she told one couple. I encouraged her interest in design from a young age. I had to suppress a smile remembering how she had actually refused to let me redecorate my bedroom as a teenager, claiming I had questionable taste. Amanda remained mostly quiet, observing the dynamics with a thoughtful expression I rarely saw on her face. Occasionally, I caught her studying me with something that looked almost like admiration before she would catch herself and look away. During the main course, my general manager approached to ensure everything was to my satisfaction, addressing me formally as Miss Parker and deferring to my opinion on the wine service. I could see my mother watching this interaction, closely reassessing her daughter in light of this new information. When dessert arrived, the pastry chef personally presented my father with his birthday cake, an architectural masterpiece that drew appreciative gasps from the guests. The chef thanked me for my specific instructions on the design, another small revelation for my family about my involvement in every detail of the evening. As coffee was served, I excused myself briefly to check on a minor kitchen issue. When I returned, I found my mother waiting in the hallway outside the dining room. Your hotel is lovely, she said stiffly. You have done well for yourself. Coming from her, this was high praise. I nodded in acknowledgement. Thank you. I still do not understand why you felt you needed to keep all this from us, she continued, a hint of accusation in her tone. It appears rather calculated, revealing everything tonight in front of all our friends. That was not my intention, I replied evenly. Amanda chose this venue without knowing my connection to it. The revelation was going to happen regardless of how I planned it. Still, you have made your point rather dramatically, have you not? Showing us all up, making us look foolish for not knowing about your success. I sighed. Mom, this was never about making anyone look foolish. I built this business from nothing with no help and no safety net. Maybe I kept it private because I was afraid you would find a way to make it seem insignificant, just like you are trying to do right now. Her eyes widened at my directness. Before she could respond, Amanda appeared in the hallway. There you are, she said, looking between us with wary eyes. People are asking for you, Jessica. Apparently several of Dad's friends want to discuss booking corporate events here. My mother pressed her lips together, clearly displeased at the interruption. We will continue this conversation later, she said, before returning to the dining room. Amanda lingered, fidgeting with her bracelet in a nervous gesture I remembered from childhood. So, all those years when I was bragging about my job and my apartment. You did not know I finished for her. It is fine. But why did you let me go on like that? You must have been laughing at me the whole time. I shook my head. I was never laughing at you, Amanda. I was just living my life on my terms, building something I am proud of. By yourself, she said quietly, without any of us. Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. Behind the perfect makeup and designer dress was an expression I had rarely seen on my confident sister's face: vulnerability. I had to do it that way, I said, softening my tone. Surely you can understand why. She nodded slowly. I think I am starting to. As we rejoined the party, I noticed my father deep in conversation with Michael, my security chief. From my father's animated expression and Michael's respectful attention, I gathered he was asking about the security operations of the hotel, finally getting to share his interest in my professional world. The rest of the evening progressed more smoothly than I could have hoped. My father was clearly enjoying being the center of attention in such an impressive venue now, with the added pride of his daughter's accomplishments. My mother maintained her social grace, though I occasionally caught her watching me with a complicated expression that suggested she was reevaluating many things. Amanda gradually relaxed, even asking genuine questions about the hotel business when we had a quiet moment together. As the evening drew to a close and guests began to depart, my father pulled me aside near the grand piano in the corner of the room. "This has been the best birthday of my life," he said, his eyes bright with emotion. "Not because of this beautiful hotel or the expensive dinner, but because I finally got to see you as you truly are, Jessica. Confident, successful, respected. It is all I ever wanted for you." "Thank you, Dad," I replied, feeling a weight lifting that I had carried for so long. "That means everything to me." As we stood there, I realized that the revelation of my success was not the end of a deception, but the beginning of a new, more authentic relationship with my family. The path forward would not be simple or without conflict, but for the first time in years it felt possible to have real connections based on who we truly were, rather than the roles we had been playing for so long. As the evening progressed to the formal dinner portion, I took my place at the head table beside my father. The contrast between this reality and what my mother and sister had originally planned with me, arriving only for dessert as a peripheral participant, was not lost on anyone at our table. The executive chef personally presented each course, explaining the inspiration behind the dishes and their connection to my father's tastes and preferences, information I had provided during planning. With each introduction, my involvement in the evening's details became more apparent. For the main course, the chef announced we have prepared slow-roasted prime rib with Yorkshire pudding and horseradish cream, which Miss Parker informed us is a traditional favorite of Mr. Parker's from his childhood. My father turned to me with surprise. "You remembered that I do not think I have had Yorkshire pudding since my own mother made it when I was a boy." "You mentioned it once years ago," I replied. "I thought you would enjoy the nostalgia." Across the table, I noticed my mother watching this exchange with an unreadable expression. The dynamic was shifting visibly throughout the meal, with my father increasingly animated in his conversations with me, asking about the hotel, my other properties, and my future plans with genuine interest. When I rose to give the birthday toast, the room fell silent. I had prepared what I hoped was the right balance of personal warmth and public appropriateness. To my father, Richard Parker, on his 60th birthday, I began raising my glass. A man whose quiet integrity and unwavering work ethic taught me more than he knows. Dad, your support, however subtle it sometimes needed to be, gave me the courage to pursue my dreams even when they seemed impossible. I hope that tonight, surrounded by friends and family in this place that represents the fulfillment of those dreams, you feel the love and appreciation you so richly deserve." The guests raised their glasses with appreciative murmurs. My father's eyes glistened with emotion as he nodded his thanks, too moved to speak. My mother's toast followed, perfectly appropriate but notably more formal and less personal. Amanda's contribution was brief and centered mostly on childhood memories that I noticed primarily featured her own relationship with our father rather than including me. As dessert was being served, my mother excused herself from the table. Moments later, I felt a light touch on my shoulder. "Jessica, could I speak with you privately?" she requested, her voice controlled but tight. I followed her to a quiet alcove just outside the dining room, where she turned to face me with arms crossed defensively. "I do not appreciate being ambushed like this," she said without preamble. "You have deliberately orchestrated this entire evening to make your point at our expense." I took a deep breath, determined to remain calm. "What point would that be, Mom?" "That we underestimated you. That we were wrong about your capabilities. That you have succeeded despite our lack of faith in you." She listed these off clinically as if cataloging offenses. "I did not orchestrate anything," I replied evenly. "Amanda chose this venue. The only thing I arranged was to make Dad's birthday special. By showing off your hotel and having the staff treat you like royalty in front of all our friends, The staff treat me with professional respect because I have earned it, I said, feeling my composure slipping. Just like they would treat anyone who had built a successful business from nothing. From nothing, my mother gave a short, humorless laugh. We paid for your education. A partial scholarship and student loans paid for my education, I corrected. I worked the entire time to cover living expenses. You know that. We gave you a home, stability, opportunities. You gave Amanda opportunities, I said, the words spilling out after years of restraint. You gave me criticism and low expectations. My mother's face flushed. That is not true. We simply recognized your limitations and tried to guide you accordingly. My limitations, I repeated incredulously. Mom, I own 7 luxury hotels. I employ hundreds of people. Where exactly were these limitations you claim to have seen? You were always different, always difficult, she insisted. Amanda was practical, focused. You were a dreamer, unrealistic. And yet here we are in the middle of my very real, very successful dream. Before she could respond, Amanda appeared in the alcove, her expression unusually serious. What is going on? People are noticing you both missing. Your sister is explaining how we apparently failed her so terribly that she felt compelled to hide her entire life from us, my mother replied acidly. Amanda looked between us, then surprisingly turned to our mother. Maybe we should just congratulate her and move on. It is Dad's birthday after all. This is not about congratulations, my mother snapped. This is about deceit. Years of it. Was it deceit, though? Amanda asked, surprising me with her thoughtfulness. Or was it self-preservation? My mother stared at her in shock. Whose side are you on, Amanda? I was not aware we needed to take sides in celebrating Jessica's success, Amanda replied, a new edge to her voice. I studied my sister with new eyes, wondering what had prompted this unexpected support. Before I could question it, my father appeared, concern evident on his face. Is everything all right? People are asking about the cake cutting. He took in the tableau of the three of us, tension visibly crackling between us, and his expression hardened in a way I had rarely seen. Eleanor, he addressed my mother, with unusual firmness. Whatever this is about, it ends now. This is my birthday celebration in our daughter's beautiful hotel that she built through hard work and determination. I will not have it spoiled by whatever grievances you think you need to air right now. My mother blinked in surprise at his tone. Richard, you do not understand what has been happening. I understand perfectly, he replied. I understand that Jessica has achieved extraordinary success that we knew nothing about. I understand that instead of simply being proud of her, you are somehow making this about you. And I understand that I have allowed this dynamic for far too long. His words hung in the air between us, a boundary drawn that had never existed before. My mother opened and closed her mouth, clearly unaccustomed to being spoken to this way by my typically accommodating father. Jessica has nothing to apologize for, he continued. If anything, we owe her an apology for creating an environment where she felt she needed to hide her achievements from her own family. I never said she needed to apologize, my mother protested, but her voice had lost its authoritative edge. Good, my father said firmly, because she does not. Now, shall we return to our guests and continue celebrating, or would you prefer to make a scene that everyone will remember far longer than they will remember the excellent meal or beautiful venue? Put that way, my mother had little choice. Her social awareness would never allow for a public disruption that might generate gossip. She straightened her shoulders and smoothed her expression. Of course we will continue the celebration, she said, her voice artificially light. We can discuss family matters another time. As she walked briskly back to the dining room, my father placed a hand on my shoulder. I am sorry, Jessica. I should have said something like that years ago. I shook my head, touched by his intervention, but sad it had been necessary. It is okay, Dad. Let us just enjoy the rest of your birthday. Amanda lingered as our father followed our mother. For what it is worth, she said quietly, I really am impressed with what you have built, and maybe a little jealous that you did it all on your own terms. The admission startled me. Jealous. But you always had everything you wanted. She gave a small, sad smile. I had everything Mom and Dad wanted for me. There is a difference. With that cryptic statement, she turned to rejoin the party, leaving me to wonder if perhaps my perfect sister's life was not as perfect as it had always appeared. The rest of the evening proceeded without further incident, though the undercurrents of our confrontation remained. My mother was polite but distant, my father unusually assertive in including me in conversations, and Amanda watchful and reflective in a way I had never seen before. As the party concluded and guests began to depart, I found myself standing with my family in the lobby, an uncomfortable quartet of people connected by blood, but separated by years of misunderstanding and unspoken truths. "Thank you for hosting this wonderful evening," my father said, embracing me warmly. It meant the world to me. "You are welcome, Dad. Happy birthday." My mother offered a stiff nod. "The hotel is lovely, Jessica. You have done well for yourself." It was as close to approval as I was likely to get, and I accepted it with a nod of my own. Amanda hesitated, then surprised me with a genuine hug. "We should have lunch sometime," she suggested. "I would love to hear more about how you built all this." As they departed, I watched them from the entrance of my hotel, a strange mixture of emotions swirling within me. The evening had not gone as I had imagined, with neat resolutions and happy reconciliations. Instead, it had cracked open years of complicated family dynamics, revealing truths that would take time to fully process. Yet something had shifted fundamentally. For the first time, I had been seen by my family, truly seen for who I was and what I had accomplished. Whether that would lead to healing or further division remained to be seen, but at least the foundation of truth had finally been laid. The week following my father's birthday celebration passed in a blur of meetings and operational decisions, but my mind frequently returned to that evening and its revelations. On Friday afternoon, my assistant informed me that my father was in the lobby asking if I had time to see him. I found him admiring the grand staircase, looking more relaxed than he had at the formal birthday dinner. When he saw me, his face lit up with a smile that contained none of the hesitation or caution that had characterized our interactions for so many years. "Jessica, I hope I am not interrupting your work. I was downtown for a meeting and thought I might stop by to see your hotel in daylight." "You are never interrupting," I assured him, genuinely pleased by his unexpected visit. "Would you like a tour?" For the next hour, I showed my father around the Parker Royal, explaining the renovation challenges, design choices, and operational philosophies that had shaped the property. He listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions that revealed his own business acumen, something I had rarely been able to discuss with him before. When we reached my office, he paused at the door, taking in the space where I spent most of my working hours. The large windows overlooking the city, the elegant but functional furniture, the wall of industry awards and press features. "This suits you," he said simply. "I can see you here making decisions, building something meaningful." The observation touched me deeply. "Thank you, Dad." He settled into a chair across from my desk, his expression turning more serious. "I owe you an apology, Jessica. A long overdue one." "You do not need to apologize," I began, but he held up a hand. "I do. For years I watched your mother and sister diminish your dreams and ambitions. I disagreed, but I said nothing or not enough. I told myself I was keeping the peace, but really, I was taking the easy way out." The frank admission hung between us, painful but necessary. "Why did you never tell us about all this?" he asked, gesturing to encompass the hotel, and by extension my entire business empire. I considered the question carefully. At first there was nothing to tell. The early years were just struggle and uncertainty. Then when things started to succeed, I guess I was afraid. Afraid of what? That Mom would find a way to minimize it. That Amanda would somehow make it about her. That the pattern would just continue and I would never be good enough. He nodded slowly, pain evident in his eyes. "We failed you then. If you felt you could not share your triumphs with your own family." "Not you," I said softly. "You always believed in me in your way." "My way was not enough," he replied firmly. "A few encouraging words in private while allowing your mother to control the narrative in public. That is not real support, Jessica." The honesty between us felt new and fragile, but infinitely valuable. "Things are changing," he continued. Your mother and I have had several long conversations since the party, difficult ones. I raised an eyebrow, trying to imagine my mother engaging in any conversation where her perspective was challenged. She is struggling, he admitted. Your success challenges many of the assumptions she has built her worldview around, but she is trying in her way. And Amanda, I asked, curious about my sister's unexpected moment of support during the confrontation. Amanda is doing some soul-searching of her own. She called me yesterday asking if I thought she had chosen her career for herself or to please her mother. He shook his head ruefully. These are conversations our family should have had years ago. We talked for another hour, covering ground that had been left untouched throughout my adult life. For the first time, my father spoke openly about the dynamics of his marriage, his regrets about parenting, and his pride in what I had accomplished. As he prepared to leave, he paused at the door. Your mother suggested a family dinner next Sunday. At our house, nothing fancy. Would you come? I hesitated, memories of countless uncomfortable family dinners giving me pause. It will not be perfect, he acknowledged, but it would be a start. I will be there, I promised. The following Sunday, I drove to my parents' house with a mixture of apprehension and hope. The modest home looked exactly as it always had, a stark contrast to the luxury environments I now inhabited daily. Yet, as I walked up the familiar path to the front door, I realized that despite everything, some part of me still considered this place a touchstone in my life. My mother opened the door before I could knock. She had clearly made an effort with her appearance, her hair freshly styled and wearing a dress I had not seen before. Jessica, thank you for coming. Her greeting was formal but not cold. Thank you for inviting me, I replied, matching her tone as I stepped inside. The house smelled of roasting chicken and fresh bread, comforting scents from my childhood. In the living room, Amanda was already seated, looking unusually subdued in casual clothes rather than her typical designer outfits. Hey, she greeted me with a tentative smile. Nice to see you. Dinner was initially quiet, each of us carefully navigating this new territory. My father made gentle attempts to guide the conversation toward neutral topics, and gradually the atmosphere began to thaw slightly. As my mother served dessert, she cleared her throat. I've been thinking about what happened at the birthday dinner, she began, her voice carefully controlled. About what you said regarding opportunities and expectations. I tensed, preparing for defensiveness or denial. I may have had certain preconceptions about your capabilities, she continued, surprising me with her directness. Those were obviously incorrect given what you have achieved. Coming from my mother, this was as close to an apology as I was likely to receive. I nodded in acknowledgement, not trusting myself to speak immediately. I always wanted what was best for both of you girls, she added. Perhaps I was wrong about what that looked like for you, Jessica. I appreciate you saying that, Mom, I replied carefully. Amanda looked between us, then added her own thoughts. I never realized how different our experiences in this family were. I always thought you just wanted different things than I did. I never considered that maybe you were not given the same chances. The admission startled me. Thank you for recognizing that, I said softly. Would you tell us about your hotels? My father prompted gently. How you built your business. We have missed so much of your life. So I began to share, cautiously at first, then with growing animation, as I described the challenges and triumphs of creating my hotel empire. To my surprise, they listened without interruption, asking questions that showed genuine interest rather than judgment or comparison. As the evening drew to a close, I realized that while decades of complicated dynamics could not be resolved in a single dinner, something fundamental had shifted. The ground beneath us had been re-established with a foundation of truth rather than assumptions and old patterns. In the months that followed, our family relationships continued to evolve. My mother and I established a cautious new dynamic, not instantly close but respectful in a way we had never been before. She even visited several of my properties, offering observations that revealed her own eye for detail and quality. Amanda and I began meeting for occasional lunches, gradually rediscovering each other as adults rather than as the roles we had been assigned in childhood. To my surprise, she eventually confessed her dissatisfaction with her marketing career and asked my advice about making a change, a conversation that would have been unimaginable before the revelation of my success. My relationship with my father deepened, the most blossoming into a genuine friendship based on mutual respect and shared interests. He became a trusted sounding board for business decisions, offering the paternal guidance I had always craved but never fully received. The healing process was not linear or simple. There were still difficult conversations, moments of falling back into old patterns, and occasions when past hurts resurfaced. Yet, slowly, steadily, we were building new relationships based on who we truly were, rather than who we had always assumed each other to be. One year after the revelatory birthday dinner, I hosted a family gathering at my penthouse apartment, a space my family had never visited during the years I kept my success private. As we shared a meal overlooking the city lights, I reflected on the journey we had taken. The pain of being underestimated and dismissed had been real and lasting. The revelation of my success had initially deepened those wounds rather than immediately healing them. Yet through the difficult conversations and gradual rebuilding of trust that followed, something valuable had emerged. I had learned that true success included not just professional achievements and financial wealth, but also the courage to be authentic with those closest to you, even when that authenticity might lead to conflict or rejection. I had discovered that while family relationships could be sources of deep pain, they also held the potential for profound healing when truth was finally allowed to surface. Most importantly, I had realized that my worth had never depended on my family's recognition of it. My success was my own, built through determination and resilience that had been within me all along. Their eventual acknowledgement was meaningful, but it was not what defined me. As I looked around at my family, imperfect but making genuine efforts to connect in new ways, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me throughout years of hidden accomplishments. The journey had been painful, but the destination, this new landscape of honest relationships, was worth every difficult step along the way. Have you ever had to reveal a hidden success or achievement to people who underestimated you? How did they react, and did it change your relationship? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that their worth is not determined by others' perception of them. Thank you for listening to my journey from invisibility to recognition, and remember that sometimes the people who should see you most clearly are the ones who need the most help adjusting their vision.